A team of psychologists and facilitators led by Doug Wheeler devised a rigorous double-blind test.
Well, this is what we had in mind. It's just a simple T device. The table's split down the middle. Myself as a researcher, I can stand back here, and I'm pretty much out of view of the
facilitator and autistic individuals sat side by side with a screen dividing their visual field. Sometimes they were shown the same picture. Sometimes different ones. They tested 12 clients, facilitating with 9 staff members, many who were trained in Syracuse. They ran dozens of trials. The results were shocking.
We literally really didn't get one correct response. I mean, it was unbelievable, really, given you know, our prior belief systems about the whole thing.
We ran 180 trials. There were 180 trials where valid communication could have been demonstrated, and none did. We had overwhelming evidence for facilitator control. That was the main finding.
It's a woman.
And it began to dawn on us that the impact on the facilitators was going to be traumatic. Their belief had grown to such an extent and was continuing to grow at that point where it really had become an essential part of their belief system, an essential part of their personality. And people would use phrases like, FC is my whole life, FC is my life. These people were dedicated. They spent their own money doing training. They spent their own money to buy canned communicators. The dedication was phenomenal. And we had evidence that these people were all controlling the typing, and we knew it was unconscious. We knew these people had no idea they were controlling it. That was clear. So, yeah, we began to be very concerned.
It was devastating to see the data just there in black and white in front of you. It was mind-boggling. There was no arguing it. It was clear-cut. To see the look on Doug's face seated across the table from me, someone who I work with, whose opinion I trust, whose work I trust, I knew you couldn't argue. I couldn't argue with those results. It was devastating to look at it and see it there in black and white in front of me.
It's like taking your best friend and going out and they're getting hit by a car and they're dead. I had the same effect. It's just like going through the death process. I mean, all of a sudden you're slapped with this thing. It's not there. It's a belief. It's something that's ingrained in me. I believe this. I centered a lot of things around this. And now all of a sudden, no, it's not.
Life at OD Heck returned to the way it had been before facilitated communication. The clients learned the life skills they would need to survive outside. No longer were they expected to express their thoughts and wishes in complex sentences.
It was like something had been taken away very, very suddenly, and I didn't know what to replace it with. It took me, I think, months before I could talk about it with some people without breaking down in tears.
A copy of the OD Heck report was sent to Douglas Bicklin in Syracuse.
I think that test has severe problems. I mean, one, you're putting people in what might be described as a confrontational situation. That is, they're being asked to prove themselves. As I pointed out, confidence appears to be a critical element in the method. If people are anxious, they may in fact freeze up in their ability to respond. They may lose confidence. They may feel inadequate.
If there was a bias, it was a bias in terms of proving that it was real. I mean, we selected cards that people experienced in their everyday lessons. We ensured that the individuals participating were paired with the facilitators they had the most success with. We tried to make the setting as natural as it could be. We encourage people to bring the reinforcers that they use in their normal everyday lives. Turn total control over in terms of, say, to the facilitators. If the person wasn't comfortable that day, they could stop it whenever they wanted to.
More studies came out.
The results of this case study demonstrate quite clearly that the subject was not able to communicate using the facilitated communication techniques.
No client showed unexpected literacy or communicative abilities when tested via the facilitator screening procedure, even after 20 hours of training.
considerable evidence was found of the facilitators influencing the attempts at communication.
None of the 23 participants demonstrated authorship. There has been no instance in which a participant has successfully identified an object through FC.
These results suggest that the communications previously reported from individuals with autism may have been influenced by facilitator coactivity.
FC had claimed to unlock expressive literacy in nonverbal autistic individuals. Under controlled scientific conditions, that literacy vanished. To date, over a dozen studies involving hundreds of children and researchers in 3 different countries have reported negative findings. But Bicklin remains unconvinced.
A number of these studies have asked people to name objects or name pictures. It turns out that for people with autism and some other developmental disabilities, a number of people experience very severe word-finding problems, such that you ask people to label an object and they can't do it. They may be able to describe the object, even state what it's for, but quite typically they in fact come out with a different name of a different object.
But, researchers asked, was it possible that a child who can write poetry and do algebra would be unable to label a cup? And they questioned why autistic individuals who had appeared on national television and addressed crowds at Syracuse conventions would all be so nervous that none of them would get a single answer right. Despite mounting evidence, most supporters of facilitated communication, especially parents like Marianne Kalin, who wrote this song about FC, were undaunted. They had invested their hopes and dreams in FC and had their own proof that it worked, at least for their children.
My validation that it was Stacy who is communicating came a few weeks ago. Now my husband has this attitude about her, and he's found out that if he does this, it absolutely makes her laugh. She just goes crazy. He wiggles his nose, so now when they greet each other, it's like this. And so now she's in love with Dad, and I've been trying to teach her how to type out Dad. And I will admit that, yes, I am taking her hand, and I am going D-A-D, and I'm, please, Stace, let's learn how to do Dad. And she won't learn Dad. But one day, Dad wasn't in the house, and she came home, and she's looking around trying to find out where he is. And so she goes, and she gets her board, and she starts pointing at the board, and I said, what do you want to tell me? What do you want to tell me? And she typed out, I-M-S-N-O-S. I said, what are you saying? And it's simple. It's shorthand. I miss knows. We have been trying to teach her the word for Dad, and she has created her own word for Dad.
I don't need any more validation. My son has given me a lot of information, much of which I didn't know. A lot of it's been about what he wanted, and it's turned out that that's what he did want. He asked even for a trip to Hawaii, and he sat good as gold on the plane for 5 hours to Hawaii. And occasionally he tells me something I didn't suspect, like at the restaurant a few weeks ago, he said, he typed out, look at her mane, M-A-N-E. Well, I looked, and the waitress had a ponytail.
Parents' attitudes to the scientific studies were summed up in a statement typed by Jeff Powell and read by his facilitator, Sue Harns.
Regarding the recent controversy about facilitated communication, we are extremely angry about the well-to-do critics who are giving Doug a disheartening review. We are the ones saying the words, and we are questioning the expertise of you and your compassion for autistic students. And please encourage us and Doug to be able to become a part of your world and get the hell out of our world.